Well, howdy everybody, and welcome to another episode of Forgotten Texas History. I'm your host, Chris Larson, the Texas Adventurer, and today we're in Allen, Texas, just north of Dallas. And this is where Sam Bass held up his first train in Texas, and the first train robbery ever in Texas. So what we're going to do today is drive around Dallas and go. He robbed a total of 4 trains and 2 stagecoaches here. So we're going to drive around town and take a look at what all these places look like today. Come along for the ride. In 1876, Sam Bass and Joel Collins drove a herd of cattle to Nebraska from San Antonio, Texas for some Texas cattlemen. They earned $8,000 off the sale of the herd. Then they promptly lost it all drinking and gambling in Deadwood. They tried to make some money hauling freight for a while. When that didn't pan out, they formed an outlaw gang and took up stagecoach robbery. They couldn't make any money robbing stagecoaches, so they decided to hit the Union Pacific Railroad. On their first robbery in Big Springs, Nebraska, they scored $60,000. They decided to split up into 3 groups to make their escape. Joe Collins and Bill Heffridge were captured and killed by soldiers. Jim Berry shot it out with the sheriff, was shot in the leg, and died the next day of his wounds. Tom Nixon escaped. Sam Bass and Jack Davis sold their horses for an old mule and a wagon, and disguised as farmers made their way back to Denton, Texas. Davis from there caught a train for New Orleans. Now back in Denton, Sam Bass formed a new outlaw gang with Henry Underwood and Frank Jackson, and they turned their attention to stagecoaches. They robbed 2 stagecoaches, both on the Weatherford Road. The first one was December 22nd. They got $43. Henry Underwood was arrested under suspicion of being Jack Davis. So the second stage was robbed on January 26, 1878, by just Sam Bass and Frank Jackson. They had a third stagecoach robbery planned, but they chickened out at the last minute. Then they decided to turn their attention to trains. So this is Old Weatherford Road, and it follows the stagecoach ride, or line. And right here where it crosses Mary's Creek is where Sam Bass held up his first stagecoach. So to rob trains, they were going to need more men. So Sam and Frank enlisted Seaborne Barnes and Thomas Spotswood. And their mark was Allen, Texas, and the Houston, Texas Central Express. On February 20th, 1878, Spotswood rode into town and went to Thomas Newman's saloon. He said he was a sporting man looking for a game, and he also casually asked what time the southbound train came into town. That night, all 4 men rode back to town, tied their horses, and loitered near the railroad tracks waiting on the train. So Sam Bass's modus operandi for robbing trains was always the same. When they'd hear the train approaching, they'd go to the station and take the station man into custody. Then when the train pulled up and stopped, 2 men would jump out into the engine and take the engineer and fireman hostage. Meanwhile, the other 2 men would go to the express car and rob it. Well, on this occasion, the express messenger thought that they were fooling with him whenever they pulled their guns on him until they fired a shot at him. Then he retreated into the back of the express car and returned fire. And he didn't give up until they threatened to burn the express car and he ran out of ammunition. So they only managed to take $1,280 on this robbery. All right, so this is Hutchins, Texas. It's just south of Dallas, off of 45. And right here in this field is where the train station was. And And this is where Sam Bass had his second train robbery. So if you look here on the ground, you can still see some of the old railroad ties that used to go in front of the station. So Tom Spotswood had been recognized and was arrested for the train robbery in Allen, although he was later acquitted by saying he was sleeping at his brother's house that night, even though there were 2 witnesses who testified against him. So there was only 3 of them on the next train robbery: Sam, Frank Jackson, and Seaborne Barnes. So on March 18th at 10:05 p.m., they were in Hutchins, Texas. So the robbery went the same way. They took the station master. When the train pulled up, they apprehended the engineer and the fireman, and then 2 bums who were riding on the cattle catcher on the front of the train, and they put all those guys in the station. This time, when the postman opened the door, the guys at the station said, "Don't shoot, they'll kill us." And so he gave up all the mail that he hadn't hidden. He had hidden them quite a bit. But then a few passengers and some of the train men from the back of the train started shooting at him. And so they retreated and rode off. Their take on that robbery was $497. So I'm over here in West Dallas. This is where Chalk Hill Road crossed the railroad tracks. There was a train station here, and this is where Sam Bass had his 3rd train robbery. And there is nothing to see here anymore. So Frank Jackson opted out of their next robbery. They enlisted a new man, Arkansas Tom Johnson. So Sam Bass and Seaborne Barnes and Arkansas Johnson on April 4th robbed the train in Eagle Ford, Texas, which is part of West Dallas. The mailman gave up, the express car man gave up, but they only netted $52 in the robbery. Not a shot was fired. Well, this is Mesquite, Texas, and right here is where the train station stood. This was Sam Bass's last train robbery. So the bandits only managed to get away with like $150. So for his last train robbery in Mesquite, Bass had 6 guys with him: Jackson, Barnes, Underwood, Johnson, a man named Pipes, and a man named Henderson. When the train pulled up, the express manager saw what was happening, emptied a 6-shooter through the door, and then closed the door. The baggage master also opened fire with a shotgun before closing his door and extinguishing his light. A conductor named Julius Avard started shooting with his Derringer until he ran out of ammunition, and then went and retrieved a pistol. And he continued to shoot at the bandits. Even after being shot in the arm, he climbed underneath the train and shot at them until the bandits left. But while this was going on, the bandits covered the baggage car with oil and told the guys inside that they were going to catch it on fire if they didn't surrender. Well, they eventually surrendered whenever they finally lit the match to catch the oil on fire. And for all this, the bandits only got away with $150. Sam Bass decided after this that maybe train robbery wasn't worth it, and he'd move on to banks. So if y'all like my content, please like, share, and subscribe, and y'all keep exploring Texas.